Hello and welcome to this conversation between me, Mary Ann Clements, and Hope Chigudu. Hope Chigudu is a sociologist, a feminist activist, and an organisational development consultant, and she's also a coach. She's supported many African and international justice groups, working across the African continent for many, many years, and she served on the boards of the Global Fund for Women, Urgent Action Fund, and on the working committee of the African Feminist Forum. She's also a founding member of Just Associates, now often known as JAS. I've recently had the deep pleasure of working alongside Hope myself as part of a project for the CHS Alliance, which is about building caring and compassionate aid organisations. In this conversation, we delve together into the role of ritual and ancestral tradition in our work and in our well-being. And we hope that you'll be both inspired and challenged by what you hear. Hi, Hope.
Hi.
It's good to be with you today. And we want to have a conversation together, you and I, about the role of ritual and tradition and how we can use them and think about them in our work. And I feel like it's a conversation that I really want to have more of. But it's also a conversation that brings up some fear, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like it's a real. I don't know. I was thinking about it this morning. I had gone for a walk, and I was thinking like, what would people in development spaces think when I talk about ritual and tradition, and would they just think like that's not what we do? We do, we do change processes, we do like look frames, we do all these things. And I was thinking like, why is it that I feel it's so important to actually really think about how we embrace a sense of ritual, a sense of tradition, and a sense of like connectedness and groundedness is what that's partly about for me. And I thought, I wonder what Hope thinks.
No, but in a way, I understand that word ritual invokes certain things among, different groups of people. Religious people think that one is abusing the word. Non-religious people think that, we are imposing religion on them. And those who are in between might be open. So, it's about perceptions. And yet, in real life, we all have rituals.
Right.
And ironically, even people who are religious, have rituals. In fact, they have rituals much, much, much more than another human being. And I think organizations too have rituals, but it's a question of naming. Naming. You name something. It's strange how a name can threaten people, but it's about naming.
Right, for sure. So maybe we can give an example, or maybe you could give an example of like a ritual that might be really commonplace that people don't name as a ritual in an organization.
For example, if one takes World Vision, if you work for World Vision, it doesn't matter your religious background, it doesn't matter where you come from. Usually, at least in Africa, between 8 to 9, they'll pray. They'll get together, whether they call it praying or reflection or meditation. They will do that. It's a ritual. You can't run away from it. It's done. That's it. When you sign into that organization, that is a ritual. There is another organization here. It's in Western Uganda. When you go to work with the organization, whether you are an employee or consultant or just someone, a visitor passing by, they start with what they call foundation courses. Foundation courses are meant to ground them in the values and the mission of the organization. So it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you are there, you attend foundation courses. And if you can't attend foundation courses, then probably that's not where you should be. And that's a ritual, it's a foundation course. And there are many, one could give many examples.
Yeah. It's like a foundation course is almost like I don't know, an initiation. You could call it like an initiation ritual, right?
Yes.
It's like you become part of this place.
You are being enrolled into the vision of the organization. It's like a rite of passage.
Yes. Right. A rite of passage, for sure. And so then we can say, like, we actually have ritual.
Yeah.
And then for me, like, the question becomes, what are the rituals that I really feel like they're missing in our spaces, or missing in many of our spaces?
Yeah.
Like, there might be the ritual of the Monday morning meeting or something. There might be there might be some rituals that about, after work on a Friday in some parts of the world, we go for a drink, or we used to before COVID. But what are the rituals that are really missing in our organizations, do you think? The ones that we should invite in, maybe?
I have seen, organizations which every Friday they sit and share cake, or they do their gratitude things, in the sense that they all sit and say what they are grateful for during the week. I've seen organizations that water their plants. They have put a few plants, and you adopt a plant, and you water it every morning as a reminder of life, as a reminder of the importance of watering our lives. That if we sit, in organizations and we don't remember to water ourselves, we are going to dry up. I've seen organizations that celebrate birthdays. I think that is very familiar for most organizations. In fact, most organizations do. They'll have a cake no matter what, no matter what, come rain, come wind, and no matter whose birthday it is, but they always have a cake. I have seen, those rituals. And I've seen organizations which every morning write something about how each person is feeling. There is a board. When you check in, you write how you are feeling. You might say, I want a hug this morning. You might say that, I don't want to talk today. You might, say that, I'm very, very, very happy, and I want to spread this happiness. So every morning people check in and write on the organizational notice board, saying how they are feeling. And if someone doesn't write, people are sure, they say, wow, she didn't write, she forgot, where can she be? So I have seen those rituals in organizations and many more.
Yeah, and something I think about this kind of check-in ritual, a lot of times I think people might think of that as like, oh, it's sort of a nice thing to do, but what's the point? Or, like they might ask questions about it, but actually my experience with that, and especially in, like, I run a lot of online spaces, so the check-in is often like when we're talking, we might have a minute to share how we're doing or something on a call. And for me, that's how you basically build kind of connectedness and kind of a shared culture between people. And when we lose all of those rituals, there's a space that gets left. And so that's why for me it feels important to, even when we're working online, even doing online events, like find ways to weave some of that ritual that's about connecting, belonging, because I think that's what we're saying they're often about, connecting, belonging. And you talk a lot about groundedness too, right?
Yes. The organizations too that do online rituals. I sit on a board of one organization where we start our meetings checking in, not in terms of how you are feeling, but really deep checking in. Putting our emotions, our whatever we've gone through in the between meetings, on the table, in a way that is not superficial, but in a very serious way, in a way that makes one wait for the next meeting, so that I can share what's been going on, and and wait for people to maybe help, advise, support, send love and energy. We do that. So there are still many things people can do when they are working online. I've seen organizations that sit in a circle every morning, and then they talk about how they feel, how they have felt nourished or not nourished during the course of the week. That is, if they're in a weekly meeting, during the week, what nourished you, what sucked your energy. Online, I've seen organizations where every morning the executive director sends a message for the day. There is a message for the day, and somehow people are comfortable starting anything before they know their message for the day. But even then, Mary Ann, even then, there are some rituals that don't work well online, but it's important to continue with those that work.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Should we talk a bit about things that might not work so well online, but might be really useful in when we can be in space together?
Yes,
yeah. What rituals do you use when you're in space with organizations? So I know you facilitate a lot of processes. What would you say are the rituals that you invite when you're in shared space with people?
When I'm in shared space with people, and something that I'm really known for, we start with an exercise. And it should be an exercise that is reflective, that is energizing, that is soulful, but also, makes one look forward to the day. I usually invite someone to do meditative yoga or breathing. Breathing, powerful breathing, because for me, breathing is what connects us. It's really, about us being alive. So as we breathe, I remind us that we are here, we are alive, but we are also connected. In this meeting, your breath, is going to affect my breath, mine is going to affect the next person. So let's breathe together. So inevitably, we breathe together, or we do meditative yoga before we start any meeting. And I make it very clear that the whatever exercise is as much part of the meeting as different things are part of the meeting, so that people don't see it as, by the way, they don't see it as something that I might be there, I might not be there, or if I wake up late, I won't be there. I make it mandatory. It's part of everything. It's part of everything that we do, when we are together. And if there is, depending on where we are and depending on whether there is time, we walk together. We always walk together after lunch, just to, how afternoons can be. So I do this power walk. I do the power walk, and people come, and then we all join and walk together, taking into consideration, abilities and disabilities. And that is something we always discuss, because it would be unfortunate to do things that exclude. So I talk to people and show them what they can do. If they cannot stretch fully, if it is walking, we still discuss, what are the possibilities there. I'm always very much aware of intersectional issues, and I try to be as inclusive as possible.
For sure. And while we're talking about sort of different abilities and different knowledges and different rituals that are appropriate for different people, I also wonder, whether you draw on some of the rituals or traditions of your own ancestry, and what you think about sharing those, or other people drawing on their own. And there's a lot of debate out there around drawing on others' traditions or not at the moment. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I have been very much trying to promote African rituals. For example, in Africa, people have always enjoyed art. There is hardly any African, function, be it death, be it excuse me, be it celebrating a new child, be it marriage, that don't have art as a ritual. So one of the things that we do, when we get together, is to pretend that we are making pots together. You know pot making? When in most African countries, when women are making pots, they sing, and then the music they do has got different messages, empowering messages, or messages that, that one can say directly, but can say in a song. So one of the things we try to do is to just, make pots. I say, let's pretend we are making pots together and we are singing together, the way women do, the way African women do. And the other one is building a community during the course of the meeting. If, for example, I have a 5 days meeting, I start by asking what it means to build a community. So we build a community, because community building is huge. It's a huge, huge, huge thing for Africa. And of course, healing. I don't remember ever having a meeting, very few, where I don't have someone who does healing. And the healing can be in the form of massage. It can be in the form of talking about traditional medicine. It can be in the form of Reiki, borrowing from, I don't know if it is Asia, India, but, I borrow from many places. But above all, I really try and push the African agenda, which, and most, bearing in mind that most of our rituals were demonized. By colonialism, by Christianity. So I remind people that, these rituals are done in, in other places, but they may not use the names we used, but there is nothing wrong with our rituals. They were demonized and replaced by those that were written. Ours were not written, and because they were not written, even the word ritual, that is one of the actually big things. Even the word ritual creates problems. But when I use difficult words, I always try and give examples of those words, how we did them. This is a ritual that we've always used in Africa. When we are together, this is what we do. So there are 3 things that I really emphasize. One is healing. The other one is art. The third one is building community. Because you see, Mary Ann, building community, in these meetings, we do things and we are serious and we are really, committed. But when we go back, we forget. So another example, before lockdown, I think it was month of February, we did a hearing. We did a meeting that we called Flourish. Because as you know, people talk about resilience, but we are saying, no, we want to do more than resilience. We want flourish. We did that. And we had, some healers. We had a masseuse. We had someone who was using essential oils, but is also good at traditional rituals. And we had, someone else who was doing just helping, with some healing or some flourishing, what can I call it, strategies. So when we left and, and lockdown, started, we formed a very, very strong community of people from Uganda who attended that meeting. The meeting was in Ghana. I think you've seen feminist diaries that I've been sharing. We started writing and we started affirming each other, and we started, sharing strategies, and whenever we could, we got together. Of course, I mean, we were not bonding as sisters should, scattered wherever we met, but still, we got together and we are still together, we still write, we still, we've even started a healing community and brought in a few other people. And one of the people in that group has started a healing center for women who were abused or harassed or raped during COVID, when that time we were locked down very strictly, phase 1. So we formed a community, and that community, is very strong. I don't know, how my life would have been without that community. But always, bringing in that African spirit of communities as survival, building communities as a survival strategy. Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing is that those different threads of like healing and community, and I've now forgotten the other one, but you're reminding me. It enhances the way that you work. Like, just to put it really simply for people listening who might be thinking, well, yeah, that's really interesting, but it's not my work. Like, my work is these reports that my boss requires.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying, and certainly what I would say, is that these practices, these rituals, whatever we want to call them, these ways of being together, are what strengthens the way that we work, that kind of builds the fabric for our actual, how things change. And actually things don't change. We don't support each other. We don't change community just through writing a report, but some of these strategies are actually part of what can change us and change the people around us, I think. So
yes, they are. And what surprises me is that the work we do, most of the work that we do as NGOs is about well-being.
Yeah.
It's about rights.
Yeah.
And yet, when we talk about well-being, like the way you and I are doing now, it's like, it's a by the way. Oh, and by the way, there is well-being too. Do we have time for it? Do we, how can we be doing this when people are dying? But we are saying that is the work. Because broken bodies produce broken results, and then they go to communities and break them even more.
Yeah.
So I've been telling communities or groups that I work with that well-being is the real work.
Yeah.
And it's political.
Yeah.
I find that if some organizations do this without realizing that the work we do is very political.
Yeah.
You have to make choices. You have to use that inner power to really assert yourself and say, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you talked about the, in your context, like the disassociation from practices in communities through that colonization process, and the fact that actually the reclaiming of practices and the sort of the centering of them again and the valuing of them again, it, is part of how we decolonize the sector, I think. And I think that that's obviously very political, and I think actually that's something that's needed in different ways, to me, everywhere in the world. So whilst someone sitting in London it might not be appropriate for me to go and just borrow a tradition from somewhere without having a connection, I think there is equivalent ways of reaching for the practices of our own ancestors, of people we're connected to, of practices that are resistant to this, the kind of colonial narrative that's so entrenched in our work. And some of that for me is also, like you say, it's like creativity, it's connectedness to nature, it's an understanding that, colonization is always about land and power. And so like, how do we connect to the land that we're on in a different way? And so for me, that it can apply everywhere. Of course, it's going to look a bit different or feel a bit different, or, what we might be reaching for slightly different things. And we might want to share them with each other, of course, because many people listening will be working internationally and all of that too. But I feel like it's something that we can all do in different ways. But what's really central and what's always important is that it's actually fundamentally a political act, choosing to do that and not to do some of the other things.
But it takes a lot of courage, and it's courage, and it's I don't know what else to call it, but it takes a lot of courage to reclaim that power to do it. in a context where we've been brought up to despise who we are, to despise our rituals, to despise, what has always made us work, or what made our great grandparents, hold together as communities. To bring that back in organizations, indeed, one has to be very, very, very clear about one's history. One has to be very, very clear about their identity. And one has to be very strong so that, one can defend, their ideas, can talk about them and give examples. This is what happened. And this is how we came to be, where we are. It was, as you say, a process of colonization. Religion itself has done its own harm. Yeah. Look, we are so ritualistic. I don't know if there is a society as ritualistic as the African society, if there is such a thing as African society. So I'm using that word without defining that concept. Yes. But we are very ritualistic. And yet you talk about rituals, use the word, people jump, say, what do you mean by rituals? What is that? You see, one has really got to read and be grounded and be very strong and say, this is what I mean. And before colonialism, this is what happened. And then it was taken over and it's being done differently, but this is what it is. Yes. Because, for example, if you talk about art, it's not, it's like, Africans art, traditional art. What does that mean? Yet look at our music, our dances, our jokes, our drama. All those are things that we've always done, and we are done by great grand parents and ancestors.
Yes. Yes. And so reaffirming that in your work is, like you said already, in relation to the word well-being, but just reaffirming those practices in your work. It is the work of decolonizing, is the work of creating change in society, right? Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be interesting to talk a bit about, I know you and I have talked a bit before about connecting to nature, maybe in relation to grounding, and also rituals related to nature. It might be interesting to share a bit about, I don't know.
Yeah, that is really, really one important thing that we forgot and continue to forget. All our food comes from nature. We breathe, air comes from nature. Water comes from nature. Our being, comes from nature. Yeah. Who told us to disconnect from nature? How did this happen? So one of the things that, again, I do when we are together is to try and find a place where we can walk without shoes and walk emotionally rather than intellectually. Walk, connect with nature, with its healing powers, connect with nature and appreciate what nature does for us. Connect with nature in a way that reminds us that if we destroy this, we are finished. Yeah. But also connect with nature in a way that shows that we are nature. And nature actually has got domain over us. Yes. Again, being sensitive to, different abilities, disabilities, and the way people, perhaps think about going barefoot. We connect. And again, this is another interesting thing. Africans and nature, we are one. I don't know who taught us to wear shoes and never to use our feet without shoes. I don't know who taught us to spend years without walking in nature and really grounding, feeling that this is solid, it is what supports me. If this nature gives way and there is a big opening, that is the end of us. Yeah. So as we walk emotionally in nature, we are grateful, we call upon its healing abilities. We appreciate, what we get, and we walk so slowly so that we can do these things. When we start walking, people take this military walk. I say, no, that's not what we are doing. We are walking, but it's a different kind of walking. It's thoughtful walking, it's emotional walking, it's walking with gratitude, and it's walking with asking nature, asking for support.
And when you say asking for support, Yeah, no.
I know. Yeah.
So that feels real for me too. Like I regularly go walking near my house,
Yeah.
especially when something's troubling me, and kind of ask for answers. And I don't know how conscious I really am about exactly who I'm asking for answers, but I talk about it being, I'm going to talk to the trees, or I'm going, because I feel like when like maybe the so-called scientific explanation would be that when I'm in nature, I feel connected to what's around me. I feel more grounded. I feel better regulated in my system, whatever the words for that might be. And so I feel that whatever that connection to something bigger than myself is much stronger, and so I might get the answers to something, and without trying to intellectualize it too much. There's something there for me. Is that what you mean? Do you mean something else? I'm intrigued.
We are energy.
Yeah,
and
right.
nature is energy.
Yes.
And energy travels. So, I mean, we learned that in primary school in physics, that we didn't know what it meant, but we learned that energy travels. And now we know. So if energy travels and everything in nature is energy, then my energy and the energy of nature is connecting. I think that's why when we go to a forest, there is that sense of well-being. Yeah. We go to an ocean, there is that sense of, well-being. So asking is allowing that energy to come to us.
Yes.
Even as our own energies go back to nature, but allowing, being free, being open to receiving the energy that comes from nature. And again, we get this energy without thinking about it. You ask people how they feel when they walk in nature. You say, I feel well, my head clears, I'm able, I feel light, And yet, at the same time, if you talk about asking nature, what is this one? What is this? But for me, it's allowing my energy and allowing the energy of the collective to connect with the energy of nature so that we thrive together.
Yes.
So that we thrive together, so that the healing is collective, and that we draw, from nature. It's free, it gives us, it's free, yet it's not free. It's not free in the sense that if we don't take care of nature, it can really hit back, it can be vindictive. But it's free in the sense that if we respect nature, we get what we need.
Yeah.
So that is what I mean by asking. It's about energy and how energies meet and heal and support and give us joy. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I know we've spoken briefly before also about water and rituals, and obviously water is part of nature. Like you said, we're all, and everything is part of nature. To be sure, but I think we've spoken a bit about some specific ways you might use water in ritual. I don't know if you want to share a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I think most communities, when I say communities, most countries, most tribes, most clans have got water rituals. How you talk to water before drinking it, how we talk to water, water sources, how we go and ask water gods. I don't know about water gods very much, but I know, I've seen communities that do that, we really talk about water gods. What we do, to ensure that the energy that is in water sustains us as we drink that water. There are different ways, as I've said, and I think people experience that, differently. And that one is easy to explain because people will pray for water. Prayer itself is a ritual anyway. So people will pray for water, people will talk to water, people will find ways of apologizing to water if they have polluted it or have not been very nice to it. And people try very hard to ensure that water sources are protected, not just because we drink it, it feeds us and all that, but also because water can be violent. Yeah, depending on where it is, we have seen that it can really be violent if it is angry. It can act in a way that is vindictive. So people, always have ways of praying to it, not as a god, but just, you are responsible for our survival. And we pray that we don't annoy you. We pray that we respect you. We pray that we don't pollute you. We pray that, even as we drink it, you nourish us, you nourish our bodies. So there are many, water rituals, as I've said, depending on the context and depending perhaps on the age group. The most young people probably pray or not even do anything. But water is very highly respected.
Yeah, and I also, what also came to mind for me was like rituals that involve bathing, or there are many in different parts of the world. There's something about water, I guess, like breath. It's like essential. It's like there's no way out of water. We can't live without water.
When women go to a river to bathe together, they perform water rituals because you are cleansing together. You are cleansing, you are washing together, and you are sharing. It's like sharing bread, you are sharing this water. So there are those rituals where, communities may be, a group of people in a community will go to a river every morning, very, very early in the morning, to bath, but also to receive the sun, to receive the sun. So you have water, you have the sun very early in the morning, and women are there, just, observing as the sun, shines on their bodies. They are rich. Of course, women have always, fetched water together and sang water songs. There are some there are some communities who, if you want to have a child, you go to a river to have your child there so that they are cleansed by water. There are many rituals.
Yeah, that's like baptism as well, if you think of
in my own work, when I'm running, for example, a meeting, I always have elements of nature. And what is one of them? And then, we'll have plants, we'll have soil, we'll have, whatever is defined as, as an element of nature. Just to remind the people I'm with that we are not alone. We need nature, and these are its elements. Let's, start by honoring that. And even when one goes to another country, I think it's very important to start by embracing nature and asking for support.
And honoring the land. And if I think about everything that's wrong with colonization, it's the total absence of that. That sort of respect for land, of course, also for the people on that land, but it is also colonization is really the choice to take land for your own and to separate it away from nature, right? It's like, we're going to take that land, we're going to exploit it, we're going to exploit its people, and we're not going to have any, therefore, reverence or like right relationship to land. So for me, like that kind of, when you talk about the decolonizing our relationship to land, it's really fundamental.
Land is spiritual. Land is not just a piece of property. It's much more than that. It's where we are born and where we bury, the dead, and, where we get our food. So to most Africans, land is really, really spiritual. And when people are separated from that feeds them, they get hurt and fragmented and broken. That's why there have been many wars about land issues, although sometimes when people don't understand, they think that is about material, acquiring material things, but it's more than that. It's about our ancestors. That's where they are. That's where they are buried. And we do respect burial, burial places. Can you imagine going into a place where someone else's ancestors are buried and you make it your own, and you forget that they might haunt you? But even respect, never mind haunting, you may not even be haunted, but it's about respect. It's about respecting people's culture.
No, absolutely. I think there's a lot of truth in what you just said. I think that is exactly what our ancestors forgot when they stole people's land all over the world. That there would be implicated. That couldn't happen with no consequence, right? You can't. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Maybe another thing that I want to throw in before we finish. It's the thing of altars, ALTER.
Oh, yeah.
When we talk about altars, there is a way people feel jittery.
Yes.
But we have always have altars and shrines. And then this shrine is taken as, what do they call, devil worship, as they put it.
Yes.
But shrines, I mean, in most countries where you go, there are shrines, but and I don't know why we agree to destroy our shrines or our altars. So when we meet, if it is a meeting, I always encourage people to come with whatever they love, so that we build our shrines, so that we build our altars. I keep a shrine here where I am. I don't know if you can see it, but this is my shrine. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see.
Yeah. So that is my shrine, and it's there. Every morning I try and use it to assess where I am. There are stones, my stepping stones, and the first stone starts with hope.
Nice.
So I invoke my name. I say, these are the different stones, and I try to see where I am, and where is the alarm? Where am I broken? When I reach that, when I think about my body and I'm taking a scan and I'm broken, I ring the bell. I say, okay, hope, there you are. And I make sure that, they are candles. These are my lights, the ones that light my way. And these are the strategies. So I think about the different strategies that light my way and remind me that I'm here, but I'm not here alone. I'm here with other people who can support me, but I've also got support, strategies. And then, just to remind me to go around 4, I go out and walk in nature, and this is my reminder. So I have built my shrine. This is me as hope, but at the same time, healing is collective.
Yes.
You cannot heal alone. There are things I do, the rituals I do alone, but even as I do them, I'm always reminded that healing, well-being is collective, and no one gets well alone in a community. Yeah.
For sure. And I think I want to add one thing and we've talked a bit about colonization in this conversation, and I think that there might be a lot of people, like white people, who come from colonial nations listening, and I just want to say something about that, because I think that part of how we heal our sector and we heal our world is actually us also embracing that need to decolonize the ways that we work and connect and do things. And I think that we can't do it alone, but also we can be building our own rituals and practices that help us to divest from this kind of colonial, capitalist, patriarchal, white supremacy-ness that is very much interested in disconnecting us from nature, from land, from one another, from our rituals, from our ancestors, and all of those things. And I think these ways of connecting ourselves daily and then to each other, and then it's like we build that over time between us. And that, I can't say that if everyone just got up tomorrow and did a ritual, everything would be healed. It's not that, but it's that if we can't claim these spaces back in our societies, including in white societies where we also suffer from this real disconnection to the land. Like, we might go walking, but we don't feel connected. We might, we have all these ways of feeling quite, I think, disconnected also from rituals and practices. And perhaps, we have also a story of being disconnected from the rituals of our ancestors that's older, that's pre-colonial times. But if we also can't do this work of reclaiming and decolonizing our own practices, then I think we're going to keep on inflicting pain on the rest of the world in different ways, and it might not look quite the same as it looked a century ago, but it's still there in the ways that we trade and connect to each other and work, even in the development sector. And that's why I feel like it's really important for people working in this sector to be thinking about reclaiming traditions that shift that.
I keep wondering who disconnected us, or who told us that the emotional us is separated from the technical us.
Right.
That we can take our technical selves to work and forget our emotional selves, that the emotional doesn't matter. I don't know where it started. I don't know who started it. And, I don't know how we have sustained that culture, because really, even if we are not NGOs, but we were working in places, we still carry our emotions with us. And if we don't respect those emotions, we are definitely going to fragment. And many of us have fragmented. But much more for a sector that promotes well-being, that respects an individual, as he or she is, the whole person. We should be doing these rituals, as you said. We should be thinking about well-being. We should promote it as the work, because it is.
Yeah. It is the work, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the one thing I hope people would, that's not the one thing, but if they take nothing else away, it's like, this is the work. Thank you so much, Hope. I'm so inspired by talking to you always, and I'm really, really grateful for this conversation with you.
Thanks, Mary Ann, and really I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. So invigorating. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye.